How worried should we be about this? Morning.
Good morning to you, Cristo. We should always be worried about the terror threat because it is not raised or changed or actually implemented without good warning. The way in which it's done is the security service, which used to be called MI5, and the Terrorist Analysis Center look at all of the incoming information which the services get and post a letter, a poster, a figure of what the threat is. Now, there are three levels. Low, I don't think we've ever been on that, and it goes all the way up to severe. Now, critical. Critical means that there's something actually happening. In Northern Ireland, it's been severe for some time because of the risk of the true IRA or the real IRA or whatever the splinter group is. And in the United Kingdom or Great Britain, that's England, Wales, and Scotland, it's been substantial now for some time. If it goes up to severe here, that will be at the 9/11 level. And that will mean that there is a real threat of there being a terrorist attack somewhere in the United Kingdom.
Is there a fear in this country, and does this perhaps feed into why this threat seems to increase? Is there a fear to actually call out where the threat is coming from? We just had a debate in the last hour about language that's used and whether calling what seems to be described here, bearing in mind that it's the war in the Middle East being used as a recruitment advert, clearly it's Islamist terror that seems to be the threat that is being alluded to in the newspaper this morning. So my question is, are we perhaps in this country, because of our kindness, because of our tolerance, perhaps because of us going a bit too far with that sometimes, scared to actually address where this major threat is from?
I think you have to be very careful when you actually identify the threat, that you have the real evidence behind it. I look at this and I think, well, there is overspill from the Gaza situation. Of course there is. It's a horrendous situation in Gaza. I think what the government of Israel doesn't realize is what they're actually doing is acting as a recruiting sergeant for Islamists, either organized Islamic extremism or individuals. And that is a residual threat in the United Kingdom that we've had for some time and is monitored, and we know about it because there have been outrages. But the threat is always that extremism. So there's extremism on the right as well. It's just at the moment it's not manifesting itself in any likely act. So when you look at this terrorism in the round, you have to say, what is the most likely place that it's going to come from? Therefore, you can divert your very limited resources to look at that. And at the moment, it's very simply the fact that there is a horrendous situation, actually not just in Gaza, but you've got Yemen as well, you've got across the Middle East, being stirred up in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Yemen by Iran. You've got all of these things that are contributing to it. So when a decision is taken, this decision will be based on evidence. It's not just something that's a whim or because somebody happens to read a newspaper. This decision to elevate the threat level in Great Britain from substantial to severe, which is, I think, what we're talking about, will be taken only on the basis of evidence.
And do you think perhaps that's not explained enough? Because there will be inevitably the cries as a result of this, of, we hear this word bandied around a lot, Islamophobia, or that perhaps this is sort of in some way anti-Muslim sentiment. So I guess the point I'm trying to get to is in what way can the public be aware of this and informed of it and know where the threat is coming from in a way that doesn't create the hysteria around some of the language that's used or some of the accusations that end up being thrown around as a result of that threat being identified?
Well, when the Prime Minister is briefed, he'll be given the evidence in effect. And one of the caveats on this will be presentational. It will be, this is how we suggest we do this, Prime Minister, because what you don't want to do is to alienate people who perhaps on the cusp, on the borderline, go, well, look, they don't care about us. Let's just do it anyway. It's a very, very carefully constructed way forward, and Britain's been doing it since the 70s. I mean, the provisional IRA threat to mainland Britain in the 1970s caused us to go through this way of doing the threat to get these different levels so that people know exactly, particularly the military, government, etc., know what the real threat is. Our problem is in the use of words, and we had to be very careful because English is a fantastic language. We have very, very precise words that we can use for things. Now, if it is that the evidence shows that there is an Islamic group, perhaps allied to Islamic State or to Al-Qaeda or any of these groups, that this threat is there, that does need to be explained. And it's the explanation that's important. As long as it's done calmly and smoothly, people should accept it. The one thing we've got now with social media and conspiracy theories is that people don't necessarily believe the government, and that's a real problem, which I think is more widespread than just the terror threat.
When we hear about these levels of terror threat, I think it's difficult for some people to process what it means for them and what they can do. So what can we do? What can people do?
Well, I suppose the most important thing for 99.9% of the population is it really is not going to directly affect you until it rises to either severe or then up to critical. When you get those elevations, then there is public information as to where and what the threat is. So we used to have, you'll probably remember when we had a severe threat during the time of IRA terrorism on the City of London. We had vehicle checks as you entered the City of London. We had places that you couldn't go and you couldn't get into. We had buildings that had blast-proof curtains and things. We had lots of checks, of individual checks. So to a certain extent, our personal liberty was restricted because of this threat. What ordinary people can do, of course, is just watch out, as you would do at any time. The other thing, of course, there are communities out there which are more where the threat of terrorism is more prevalent, and that's where it's really useful if people do remember that terrorists kill indiscriminately. And if they are going to place a bomb somewhere, it would be really good if you know something about it that you tell the police, because it's only through that sort of information that it is possible to curtail some of these extremist acts. And it might not be an organized group, of course. It could be somebody who's been radicalized by watching the television or watching some social media. And back in the 70s, the times of the IRA, we didn't have social media. It was very much organized groups. They could be penetrated, and we got peace in Northern Ireland in 1997, or relative peace. The problem we have now is that there's so much disinformation out there with social media that we cannot control, that there's the real risk of radicalization.